There was a time, many years ago, when the Greenfield baronies were a realm of great renown, a place to be respected for their faith, their great deeds, and their strength of soul. They produced some of the finest craftfolk in small things, great works of art, and from within their shadowed hearts came those people of great courage. Snow would fall lightly on the great cities of Ulsterberg, Wolstad, and Hasselbach. The baronies could be counted upon as some of the greatest leaders in southern Esterra, and the mighty guilds of the realm were some of the most elite establishments of learning and skill in the lands. Those times have fallen into history like the collapse of a great oak, rotten to the core to the point where it is hard to imagine how it ever stood. The modern Weald is a shadow of its former self. One barony, no great guilds, and known little aside from sickness and its substantial supply of Concordian tax. Wielder heroes attend the summit, giving their lives like every other realm, and while many wielders can wear their realm's role in the founding of the Concord as a badge of honour, that seems like greatness achieved so long ago now. There is a rot in Resinderholtz, a boring of hundreds of tiny mouths, but it remains to be seen if it can be healed before this final oak comes thundering down, crushing those healthy trees that reach for the sunlight around it. I feel lost from my own way. The guilds of the baronies were once places of skilled learning. They could be relied upon to address the maladies of the realm with knowledge and proficiency that was essential to the fraught lives of those within the Weald. Close quarters breeds illness, wealth calls enemies, and success forges greed. While the great baronies wove a land of resilience and faith, it was the guilds that armed that land and gave it hope. But the great defeats of Ritterswold and Verlorenherz, coupled with the plague of Wassertal, broke the guilds. The guilt of those who can help invariably draws the best of us into danger, leaving only their gravestones when all is said and done. Such is the fate of the guilds, fled of leadership during the greater failures, their doors shuttered or abandoned in the face of more mundane concerns. As it stands in Resinderholtz, 3 of the 5 guilds are but legends in the minds of old men. One guild plays a shadow game of existence, and perhaps one has found its bones buried under the floorboards. The Crow Doctors, those medical experts who turn back the Blassestreit at the Eisen River with flame and steel, are regarded with fear and respect across the Concord. Their masks are the last sight of many Concordian soldiers, and their harsh regard is an example for surgeons across the realms. But at home they are a scattered farce. There has not been a university in Resinderholtz for decades, and even the Scholars Mortis in Wolstad was an architect's nightmare, barely teaching a single cohort of doctors before the north wing collapsed and the whole structure fell into the mould-clogged ruin, now housing the city's abandoned and homeless. Those who wear the mask of healer in Resinderholtz would never admit it, but were it not for Concordian funds and resources, there is no way they would ever be able to turn back a serious outbreak of the Blassestreit. And there are half dozen outbreaks of less dramatic diseases that they are forced to ignore through lack of resources. There was a time when the doctors of the Weald could reach the forefront of medicine, but even now they can feel what they know collapsing under ill maintenance, like that great house on the outskirts of Wolstad. Hunts marshals, once the agents of the baronies, were always going to struggle adapting to the modern world. With the judicial power of the barons ceded to the Concordian magistrates, they began to serve 2 masters. On the one hand, they remained the personal agents of the barons, protecting their person, investigating their concerns, and seeking out spies within the realm. On the other, they are mercenaries of the Concordian magistrates, seeking out smugglers, murderers, and burglars, for bounties or perhaps stable coin as an agent of the watch. Those hunt marshals who can find themselves in the orbit of the barons find their purpose easily, but others do not. They clog up the hallways of local law houses, bickering over spare bounties like hungry dogs, or clogging up the back rooms of tap houses, drinking away their meagre funds. It is an open secret that crime is rampant in Wolstad, Krensberg, and Eisen, but the hunt marshals are helpless to challenge it without central organisation and truth in their insignia. The Weald sages of Resinderholtz have experienced a resurgence. The declaration of Barons Schwartz and Vogt have once again allowed them to gather for the first time since the Night of Silverblood. The sages have wasted no time in doing so, gathering in small covens to share knowledge. But these gatherings have revealed larger problems. All across Brisinderholtz, the Weald is shifting its weight. The number of unspeakable things that have reached out from the darkness is only increasing, their grasping hands curling around the distant havens. Beyond the darkness there is intelligence, and the sages may have encircled themselves without knowing it. Not since the Coven of Unspeakable Truth there has been a sage superior in Brisinderholtz. Will it be too late before a new one is instated? Of the non-priestly guilds, the only one with hope in hand are the soldiers of iron and intelligence, the green-wheeled Ritters. Ever since the Eisen College of War was rebuilt by the bloody Baroness Saskia in 222, purpose has been found. Every summer, young people gather at the outer practice fields and hope to prove themselves worthy of entering the college and its long course in training. They are seen all over town in their black gambesons, lugging training equipment and books in equal measure. The locals know enough about the college's strict measurement to dress down these young apprentices when their armaments are in poor condition or their presentation is lacking. In winter, veteran warriors attend the college, some for a short term of training, others to attempt the full mantle of Ritter. In this, the college has become the heart of Eisen. But even now the Ritters struggle for relevance and reach beyond the township. If by some miracle they can rally the required numbers, Ritter Captain Ostian Valdrig has volunteered to step down, returning to the life of a hardened mercenary. In all of this, the guilds struggle. In another realm this may be less of an issue, but the unique history and culture of the Weald means that these tasks and responsibilities are rarely being taken up by others, and if they are, it is at a steep fee. The path to resurgence for these groups is a long one, but perhaps one those with the power in Brisinderholtz will need to take to heart. Game information. There will be decisions and information relating to the guilds of the Greenweald for the Baron of Brisinderholtz and the Champion of the Baronies. Excluding Hounds Priests, which are outlined in the next entry, the following is the status of each guild in Brisinderholtz. Weald Sages, Hunts Marshals, and Crow Doctors currently do not have a sanctum, whereas Ritters currently have a sanctum, being the Eisen College of War, but have not fielded 10 Ritters at Summit. Should the Ritters field 10 at Summit, the following Summit would prompt the election of a Ritter Captain of the Eisen College of War. Because the sanctum has been built in Eisen, Ritters across the regions are better organised and are attempting to deal with the issues they face in their charge. However, it is largely disorganised. Concordian Ritters are receiving additional information and requests from the College of War, and they should expect those to continue this Summit. As Hunt Marshals, Crow Doctors, and Weald Sages like Sanctum, issues facing their area of responsibility are going unaddressed and may not even come to awareness of the Concordian heroes unless they become particularly acute. New sanctums can be built in one of two ways. Occasionally an opportunity may present itself through the story of the Concord. Otherwise the Senate can request an appraisal of a sanctum through the power of appraisal. I envy the houses of dead men. The guild most likely to return to form is that of the Hounds Priests, the faithful monster slayers that keep the people of the barony safe and their bodies whole from the predators of the Weald. The Krenzenberg Abbey, once the headquarters among the ruins of the great General Lavinia Fisher's campaigns, has been cleared and gifted to Chapter Christoph, providing a sanctum for the monster slayers. As training resumes and refugee Hounds Priests return, it seems that a chapter will resume the role of leadership and training soon. But dogs have been known to bark and bite as they establish a hierarchy, a process the Hounds Priests are currently muddling through. Two different chapters, one old and one new, are competing for relevancy and support of the Barony's Hound Priests. Chapter Christoph is an old institution, one of the chapters that predates the collapse of the Baronies. A place of learning and wisdom, Christoph promotes remembering the harsh lessons of the past, never letting them be forgotten. While training well-rounded Hounds Priests, much of their work focuses on knowledge of the arcane and the strength of faith. Christoph sees Hounds Priests as priests first, saving the souls of the people as much as their bodies. Their name is stamped all over history, with many great slayers and curse breakers owing their training and mettle to Christoph. Currently, they are led by the aging Vina Feridov, a once retired Hounds Priest of Stalia and Arcadian, returning to see the chapter back to its former glories from under the dust of irrelevance. A stern and laconic woman, Fedorov has stated she will step back from leadership if a new chapter captain is found, returning to her quiet retirement somewhere in the Sable Heart. Chapter Christov has been unified in its observance of the old ways, particularly in regards to Weald Sages and the baronial seat. Blood-stained by the Night of Silver Blood, it appears that Christov holds no institutional regrets. Weald Sages are dangerous sacrifices that must be done, but should never be accepted. Fedorov has also stated that she does not feel that the position of Baron is right for a Hound's Priest, just as a Hargrave to take up this mantle is to abandon the cause of others. In contrast, Chapter Rackenbach is everything Christov is not. A chapter less than 2 years old, rallied around a veteran Hound's Priest on a large farm outside Wallstad. Hans Rackenbach is a verbose and powerful warrior priest whose chapter promises to train heroic Hound's priests dedicated to tackling the challenges of the Weald head-on. The camp at the chapter farm is a military encampment with sparring fields, obstacle courses, dirt square classrooms, and sheltered alchemical laboratories. Where Christov combines magic and faith, Rackenbach draws on skill at arms and alchemy, augmenting their physical abilities to wrangle the beasts and corruptors of the cursed forests. Hans is a very public figure in all of this. A devotee to Lumos and Anarch, he believes that Hound's priests are positioned to be great leaders of the Weald, their skill set straddling a mystic knowledge of the sage and the dark realities of the Crow Doctor. Is it surprising that 2 of the 3 Concordian barons have been Hound's priests? No. We are the soul of the baronies, and that is not something we should feel shame about. The chapter has also been forward in its stance of bringing Weald Sages into the fold of knowledge and influence. Why leave one of our greatest weapons at arm's reach? We should bind with the Weald Sages and keep them close, for their safety and the safety of all. Hans has stated that he intends to continue his role in leading the chapter in some respect, looking forward to working alongside the elected chapter captain to guide the organisation that bears his name. In this current moment, neither chapter is ratified and recognised. There is certainly a world where both could coexist, but given the limited resources and limited space in the Krensberg Academy, it is unlikely that this will occur anytime soon. What is more likely is that the Hound's Priests of Resinderholz will have to make a very difficult decision soon, a decision which will affect the future of their order for decades to come. Game information. There will be additional information and decisions for Hound's Priests and the Baron of Resinderholz in regards to chapters Rackenbach and Christov at this summit. Hound's Priests have a sanctum in the form of Krensberg Abbey given to them by Baron Schwartz and are very close to reaching their minimum numbers for recognition as a guild. However, there are 2 groups vying for recognition as the first Resinderholz chapter. Chapter Christov represents the status quo and experience way of the Hound's Priests, with a focus on magic, faith, and knowledge. It is exemplified by Vina Fedorov, harsh but fair, knowledgeable but secretive, cold but effective. Chapter Rackenbach represents change and a new strength in the Weald. Its focus on martial skill, alchemy, and leadership appeals to young and spry Hound's Priests, eager to be the heroes they want to see in the Weald. Its leader, Hans Rackenbach, is the epitome of this, powerful, direct, and making change where he can see it. If there are 10 Hound's Priests present at the Winter Summit, this will prompt the election of a chapter captain at the Summer Summit. This chapter captain will become recognised as the leader of that chapter, and will receive information about the status of Hound's Priests across Resinderholz and what concerns are particularly present. The Hound's Priests will also have to decide upon which chapter to recognise. This chapter will become the chapter of Resinderholz, folding membership of all Hound's Priests under it, until another chapter appears. Whichever chapter receives 10 votes will be the successful one. In Wickedness, I sheltered the Heathen. Be warned, this has a trigger warning for gore, violence, and self-harm. His footfalls were too heavy. All he can think of was his quarry in front of him and the constant left-right slip of his right greave, threatening to dislocate his kneecap with one wrong impact of his armoured weight. The raider was fast as a nightmare, slipping under boughs and over rotted logs, its green and gold hood tearing under the hungry grasp of reaching thickets. Heinrich knew that the Zek was armed, but also knew that if the foolish heretic stopped for a moment, the armoured rider would slam through it on the momentum of his armour alone, disregarding his ensorcelled greatsword. He would feel them broken underfoot and around his blade, as was his role. The Zek slipped down a rocky escarpment with a sodden gully, leaving Heinrich stuttering to a thunderous stop, lest he careen into open space and then a sudden rock-strewn stop. With the gradual wind-up of a mechanical bull, the Ritter chased the Zek from the gully's lip. He imagined leaping down upon them, his armoured knee cracking into the sweet spot where his neck met his back, paralysing them and leaving them at his mercy. But damn, he was too slow. He needed to pick his way through these blasted thickets and avoid collapsing into the gully. He needed to gain pace. With a guttural snarl, he threw his sword to the ground. He would rend this interloper with his fucking war-carved hands. Yes, that would do it. He ran on, reaching out and grasping at ruined trees to pull himself further and faster. He was hungry for it. The gully ended and the Zerkatal began scrambling up the steep hillock, rushing on all fours like a child scrambling stairs. It was a thin thing, wayfish and starved, adorned in war paint and tattoos. Heinrich was less graceful about descending the gully towards the base of the hillock, only succeeding in embedding himself into the muddy hillside like a muscle meteor. It was no issue. He unlatched his upper and lower cannon and left them in the wet soil. As he began to charge, he unlatched the other side, balancing his arm and flexing them. His good wool tunic flexed and threatened to tear his seams under his true weapons, the ones he was born with, the ones he used across the Concord to kill. 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 He stormed up the hillock as Zek disappeared over its lip. He was still too slow, held back by his accursed armour. With a stumble and a bestial roar, he ripped the bastard greaves from his body, hurling them into the woods as the buckle shattered under his hands. His brigandine was the last to be torn from his body, sliding down the hill behind him. He continued upwards, the massive leafless spruce coming into view. The hilltop was dominated by the hollow tree, its form strewn with foul effigies and bloody palm-skins. The Zekatar was there, standing against the tree, one hand upon its trunk and the other clutching a short hatchet, as Heinrich came on like the storm. But he was still too slow, held back like a man in a receding tide. As he bellowed in raw hatred, he reached into his mouth and tore, pulling his cheek and lip away in abomination of his form. He must be faster, he must kill, 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 kill. With one hand hauling on his lower jaw and the other scrambling at his ruined face, the Ritter slammed to his knees before the Harbinger. His body gave out under the immense pain that was blessed upon him all at once. For a brief half-breath before he could wrench his own mandible free, and before the hatchet crowned him a dead man, he felt the sickening wet pain that he had inflicted on his own body. As the corpse slumped to the ground, the corpse tree stood unmoving. It cared not, it knew not, it wanted not. It simply was. But as the Zekatal ran their hand along the trunk in thanks, you could swear that it shivered in pleasure. Across the north and west of the Raven's Reach wilds, the silent forms of Harbinger stands, a cursed carrier wood trees cursed by the Zekatal war shaman brother Ash loom. While they have not shifted over in the last 6 months, the Harbingers appear unmoving in both form and influences. The situation has worsened. Across the Havens and even Krenzenberg, there are reports of Zekatal scouts moving among the Harbingers, unmoved by their magics and uncorrupted by their forms. Even worse, attempts to pursue them are inadvertently led to the profane influence of the stands, each one carrying their own unique horror. Knowledge of how to defeat the Harbingers is sparse and carefully hidden, but attempts by the Baron of Resinderholz, Valentine Vogt, to make it public just how dangerous these threats are has thankfully ensured no great tragedies have transpired in attempts to defeat them. But still they stand, not only threatening the baronies through their very nature, but also allows a hated enemy a secretive approach that cannot be broken. Game information. There will be information and decisions in regards to the Harbinger stands and the Harbinger's nightmare for the Baron of Resinderholz and the Champion of the Baronies. The Zekatal's ability to move through the Harbinger's nightmare to Azak Resinderholz, should they wish it, makes defending the region very difficult if the Zekatal were to attack from the north. The War Chamber will be unable to see the intent of Zekatal forces in Valoran-Hertz, and if they are defeated on the attack, they will take slightly reduced casualties as Concordian forces will be unable to pursue routed forces properly. This does not affect Concordian forces attacking the Zekatal in Valoran-Hertz. All investments in the Ravensweech Wild will find that they have produced slightly less due to the influence of the Harbinger stands. You can be too old to live, but not too young to die. The streets of Krenzenberg are alive with anger. Once again, the outlying havens and hamlets have been forced into the streets of the townships, camps, and impromptu hearths, once again clutching to every street corner. Beyond the danger of the Harbinger stands and the Zekatal, monsters prowl the wilderness around Krenzenberg. Zankatia, Tazerwims, and even a Treant have been drawn towards the settlement, for reasons unknown. They have attacked the distant settlements and spilt blood for their mysterious reasons, leaving carnage in their wake. In response, the heroes of the Weald have rallied, bringing skill and hard bearing to the northern settlement. Their presence in the township brought hope. All will be well in time. But they were wrong. Each time the heroes of the Weald emerge having only barely attained some semblance of victory, and just as often allowing their quarry through. Each victory has been matched by equal failure, and the circumstance further fans the embers of anger, both from this menagerie of monsters and from the refugees in Krenzenberg, who begin to look upon the heroes with disdain. A mob thrown stones and torches at the baronial manse in the centre of town before being dispersed by Hunt's marshals. A group of would-be slayers rallies at the town's only tap house, the Raven Reached, before being found shattered against a stony riverbed by the treant that has been named Hallisend. Tensions are rising in Krenzenberg, and the storm clouds are gathering. Game information. There will be game information regarding strife in Krenzenberg for the Baron of Rosinderholtz and the Champion of the Baronies. A number of sanctioned events have occurred over the summer season regarding a campaign of monsters near Krenzenberg. While successes have been found, they have been balanced by equal defeats, and defeats that are felt in a more enduring way. Tensions are rising in Krenzenberg from without and within. A number of investments in Krenzenberg have been damaged. There will be no decisions or opportunities to correct this monster plague at Summit. That is the story for the teams who have been putting on those wonderful events, and we won't take that away from them, but their impact has been felt across the Weald. And that concludes my reading of Monsters and Mice. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next time.